We have, I'm been with the youth. That's typically where I'm at. So this is not my Sunday school. But we're going to go ahead and get started. We got Fred and Desi with us this morning. So they're going to share an update of their ministry and what they've been doing. And so if you get to stick around for the second service, if you weren't at the first service, you get to see even a little more. So I'm going to hand it over to them, to Fred, and let them teach us. So thank you for being here. You need this set up point.
Yeah, please. Privileged to be here. And my better half will show up here shortly. Sure.
I don't know if this thing's going to stay or not. You can try.
Well, we'll just have to go shorter as it goes down there. Yeah. Let's go ahead and put the first slide up there. We have been for the last 2.5 years in the city of Tarakan, Kalimantan, Indonesia, and that's been quite a change for us. Oh, we get the real thing. Whew.
This is not good.
Is there something wrong with my pants that I have to hide behind this or something?
When you receive a gift, you say thank you.
Oh. Muchísimas gracias. I don't know. Sometimes this works and sometimes it doesn't. There we go. Did I do that or did you? Why don't you start?
Well, it was a process to get us back overseas. We were very happily working at MAF headquarters in Nampa, Idaho, and God started nudging in Fred's heart first about going to Indonesia, and our MAF HR people said, hey, you should go to Tarakan, and the seed was planted. We finally arrived there, though, in November of 2020, right in the middle of COVID. And it actually there was just a brief area where we could get an e-visa, and that was something that was new. They were wanting you to go visit a consulate to get a visa, but instead, because of COVID, they started doing the e-visas. We were able to get that, and we traveled quickly when we got it to Indonesia. We traveled with Fred's sister, Betsy, who was going to teach 1st through 3rd graders at the school in Tarakan. And our son and daughter-in-law are on the same base. They're the Schmidts. So what were they going to call us? Betsy and Fred and I lived in the same home, so they said, well, we're going to call you the Schmolsons. Betsy is an Olsen, and we're the Schmidts, and so we were the Schmolson house.
Indonesia is the most populous Muslim nation in the world. It is an archipelago of 10,000 or more islands. Most of them are not livable. They're just little rock pieces sticking out of the ocean. But we lived in the, well, if you notice where that arrow is pointing to the city of Tarakan, that island is the island of Borneo. And it's shared by 3 countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, and in the little kingdom of Brunei. And Borneo is about the third largest island in the world, next to New Guinea, which is shared by Indonesia and by Papua New Guinea. So we went there. We were allowed. MAF provides the housings, and so we had this home made out of brick, and yes, it did have air conditioning. We had temperatures that were usually 85 and above, and humidity that was at least that much. And so it was very warm there. And I'm sure you would probably enjoy a little more humidity here, like as in rain.
So the city of Tarakan is on an island about 10 miles wide and 15 miles long. There's 250,000 people there on this island. The streets, you may imagine, are just full. And the main transportation are scooters. And you can see the various ways that things that they carry on those scooters. Besides having, whole families will be on one scooter. You've got mom, dad, and 3 children on there, and they've been able to make it work. Or one of the things that astounded me was seeing a beautifully dressed Muslim woman with her hijab on, and she's got these long flowing dress on. She's sitting beside, on the back of the scooter, her husband's driving, and she's sitting side saddle on it, and her foot is just a-going. She's got her legs crossed. She is texting somebody on her cell phone, and she doesn't care about all of the thousands of scooters that are going by her. The Lord gave me grace to be able to learn how to drive. They drive on the left side of the road, and so basically cars are like stones in a riverbed. And the scooters are water that flows around that stone. And this is an example of what the traffic looks like.
This was actually during COVID, so it was greatly reduced. One of the things that we get to experience over there is because of it being predominantly Muslim, is the 5 calls to prayer every day. Starting at about 4:30 in the morning, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and about 7 o'clock. Don't ask me why there's such a big gap in the morning. Maybe it's just to try to wake up after getting up so early. But it can be, depending upon where you live. I took this next video up where our son lived on top of a little knoll, a little hill. And I don't know if you can see it very well, but there are 2 mosques you can see just in the picture. And you can see the minarets on the right-hand side, and then beyond that there's another one. And there are several others that you can't see just because of trees. But there's 1 mosque in every neighborhood, and the neighborhoods aren't that big. So this is what it sounds like. And what you'll notice is that the dogs were kind of getting upset about it as well. Okay, enough of that. But that's what we would experience, and it would be quite deafening. It's no longer done by a human standing up on top of the minaret and singing out. It's done by loudspeakers that are typically turned up to where they're just slightly distorting because they're so loud. And people just carry on. This is life. This is how you just carry on and deal with it. Thank you.
MAF has been in Kalimantan province for 50 years of ministry. The Christian Missionary Alliance missionaries were there way before MAF was, and they really struggled as they spread the gospel into the areas of Kalimantan. But we've been there for 50 years, and my privilege was to have to highlight the decades that there were different types of ministries going on. It took a lot of time, but we're hoping that as the stories came out of how missionaries thrived, the stories of the nationals that were changed by the love of Christ, we're hoping that history will carry on and will encourage the young ones that are actually at the MAF base right now. So MAF, our statement is MAF desires to see isolated people changed by the love of Christ, by serving together to bring help, hope, and healing through aviation.
Some of the ministry highlights that we enjoyed either being a part of or watching. We have a friend, a believer who is a national, whose heart is for reaching out to the villagers in a particular region there. And he just loves to go and come alongside, pray with folks, and one of his heart's desires is discipleship, and how to live life as a Christian family. How do you raise your kids? Some of those things are not being passed on very well. Part of it is education is held in quite high regard, so much so that parents are willing to send their kids out, their high school kids out, to, let's say, a neighboring village that has a high school, or to a town that's even further away. But there's really no family members for them to live with necessarily, or dorm situations with oversight. And so, as you can imagine, young people living together like that, that comes up with a lot of issues, a lot of problems. And so it's helping to teach the parents really what is important, and a Christian walk.
Our national staff are amazing. They really have hearts to serve, and one of them is called Hatimaf. That means Heart of MAF, and they have teams that have come together to go into some of our remote villages. And in one particular outreach, they're working with literacy. Yes, there is education there, and yes, there are teachers there, but sometimes the teachers just don't show up. They get a paycheck, but they don't come every day to really teach the children. So our team was working to teach them the basics of reading, and obviously the goal is so that these children would learn to read the Word of God, and also that they would read to their parents, and that literacy would grow. Not only that, but that the need of learning who God is, and that they would become disciples of Jesus.
Another Hatimaf outreach was several of our staff went to a village that is predominantly Muslim. Now, here's one of the things is that with Christian Missionary Alliance started reaching out in the 20s to many of these villages in the interior of North Kalimantan. And so these villages are predominantly Christian, and they don't have a mosque with its loudspeaker blaring 5 times a day. They have their own speakers that are blaring certain times of the day with Christian music. It just kind of, it's a mindset of how they do things. But this particular village was predominantly Muslim, and there was a pastor that was living there that he was not allowed to have a church building. But his desire was to expand the parsonage so that there would be room for meeting. And so this team went in and built or expanded their house. And this is not kind of the house that you would expect here in Kansas. There's too much water around, and you'll see by the video what they had to deal with. Don't you wish you had some of that water around, pump it out into your fields? Well, maybe not. That didn't look very appetizing. Go ahead and forward it. We do average of 4 medical flights a week. Sometimes it's more than that, and then sometimes we'll have several weeks where nothing happens. But we have an agreement with the Ministry of Health for part of the province of North Kalimantan, and that is now, as we speak here, being expanded. The whole province wants this, and so we will get called up. But it used to be that people would communicate with us via high-frequency radios, radios that we would often place out into key villages so that they could communicate back the weather, so we knew what we were dealing with when we were getting ready for flying that day, and for the needs that they have, particularly health needs. Well, like here, cell phones are ubiquitous. Even way out there in the jungle, they have cell towers. And so they just call us up. Hey, we have this need, which has really changed the scope of how we deal with stuff like that. And so we will fly out, and we can, the plane that we now use is the Kodiak, which is a 10-place or 10-seat aircraft. And it has a lot more room than what we used to fly, which was Cessna 206s and Cessna 185s. And so we can fit 2 patients, head to foot, lying on the floor on one side, take out all the seats on that side except for the front 2, and have a couple patients even sitting in the seats next to them. But we do have to have room for family members. The hospital system there is that family members will take care of them in the hospital, change sheets, clean them, bring food, go buy medicine. So it's very different from here. So it's very important that we have those family members there. So the need that developed, and maybe you should take over that one.
So the need developed, where do these family members stay while their loved ones are in the hospital? And the guest house ministry was created about 9 years ago. It's an actual house, and there's quite a few bedrooms in there. There's fresh water for them. A lot of them will sleep on just mats. That's very common. That's how they sleep. Some have mattresses there, but it's a ministry so that these people have a place to stay. While they're at this Ruma Singa, as we call it, we have some national staff that are helping them to get through the intricacies of the medical system, as well as tell them where to go and buy some things. Rice is provided for them, and in Indonesia, you eat rice 3 times a day. If you don't have rice, you haven't eaten. So that's very important to have that on hand for them. But more so, they're hurting. They're scared about their loved ones. Some of them are staying 3, 4, 5 months because of ongoing needs for their loved ones. And in this process, we have the opportunity to share Jesus with them, to share the gospel with them. Once a month, our staff will go there and just we share songs together, we pray together, we the word of God is being read and spoken and shared. So this is a way that when they go back to the villages, that they have an opportunity to share what they've learned. Pak Bob, again, is one of the men that help us in being able to, in their own heart language, share about Christ.
I'm thinking this is a video, but I'm not really sure. Maybe not. This is just some of our national staff that are there that provide the music and or the music team to lead the worship. So as a part of the emergency flights, the medical evacuations, we do a lot of women who are in labor and are having difficulties. And it's very common for a child that is born as a result of these transportation from the village out to a hospital to name the child after the pilot. And so we have a couple of Tyler Schmidts floating around out there, and other of our pilots. So it's very interesting. We also, not all patients survive. And so it is a ministry to return these bodies back to their villages. It's an important cultural aspect to be able to meet for them. Next.
We mentioned earlier about the Katidaya Bible translators that are involved in translating still unwritten languages and translating the Gospel of Luke. Well, last summer, we had the opportunity to really celebrate big the 5 languages that were translated into Luke. And since then, these languages have been dubbed into the Jesus film and are being shown. The beautiful dresses that the gals are wearing is a type of design that is part of this area where the Bible translation took place. There's 2 different kinds there, which means it's 2 different areas where they were working. This is just a sweet picture of the school where we were at. Used to be a house, and the school had grown in earlier years to accommodate more children. But it was only a 5-minute drive away, sitting way up high on a hill. And one of our joys was to, or my joy was to help with educational therapy. There were some children very specifically that needed help, and I was able to help them on their learning journey, let's put it that way. One of my interesting things that happened was I also took a continuing ed course, which was using teletherapy. And one of the things that God provided in a very unique way was Betsy, Fred's sister, and I were organizing the school, trying to figure out what was all there, what needed to be taken away, what needed to be kept. And way deep down underneath the stairs was this box. And in the box was called a document camera. Now, a document camera can be plugged into your computer, and so when you are sharing something from a book or you're writing something, it's almost like an overhead transparent overhead projector. And so this is projecting on a screen to someone on the other side of a student, basically. Well, God had provided this document camera probably 5 or 6 years before I came there. And it's amazing, there was a need for a child in Lesotho that needed some educational therapy. And because of this little device, the sessions went so much better. And he was really being helped through this because of some of the reading challenges that he had. So it's just neat how God will provide before you even know that you need something.
Next.
This is one of my favorite views out of the whole city. Way back, you can see an outline of mountains, and that's Borneo. Our guys would fly from their airstrip. They'd fly over water towards Borneo every single day. And when the clouds were lifted, it was just such a beautiful sight of the green, and really it was a reminder for me to pray for them as they flew, and for the remote ones out there that need help, that they need a way to be able to live and to thrive, and also praying for their heart condition as well.
It may not be, we may not have really made it clear that we don't actually live on the main island of Borneo. Go ahead. But we live about a mile off the coast of Borneo on a small island, which happens to be where the city of Tarakan is based. But flying into these airstrips, you guys are familiar with anything mechanical will break down. That's just the way it works. And so breaking down mid-flight doesn't work too well with airplanes. So we really work hard at trying to anticipate what is happening, doing inspections every 100 hours of flight time to look very deeply into the inner workings to make sure that things are hanging together, no cracks or whatever. So that was one of my responsibilities, is working on aircraft and helping out with inspections, and when they do break down, repairing them. We've had a few experiences, in fact, just not long after we left them last month. They said, oh, we have a flat tire. The plane landed fine into this airstrip, but then as they got out, they heard the hissing sound. We have 2 Kodiaks, so the second one was able to fly out with a spare tire, and they were able to carry on. And that happened to be a flight for some of you who were, we shared in the first, we shared about Kartidaya, the Bible translators. And so we had some funny noises coming out of the gear, the landing gear connection to the fuselage. And so this was pulling it apart to make sure it wasn't falling apart. But it was just happened to get splashed really good by mud, and sand got inside of there and was squawking. What I ended up doing in most inspections was we pulled all 10 seats out, and many of these seats, particularly the passenger ones, the 8, are getting pulled in and put back in multiple times during the day. And and it gets laid on the ground and then put back in, so you get mud in them. And so my responsibility was just to verify everything was, the corrosion wasn't taking over, and to clean the mud out that got inside the pipes. When I wasn't doing maintenance on the planes, there were many other things that needed looking into, and so the school generator needed a once-over, an oil change, and kind of taking care of some of the corrosion that was taken over. I got to do, it seemed like stoves liked to quit working in the homes of our staff, our team, and it seemed like I was looking at those at least once a month.
Well, I think we've mentioned before that it was really a privilege to be able to share life with our Indonesian family, so to speak, and with their 4 children. It was fun to go to school and get a hug from each one of them as we entered life together. So you can imagine how the other team were wondering, how is this all going to go? This is our boss's parents, and they're old. Everybody's really young on the team, and wondering how it would all go. It's by God's grace that we say that it was a success, that we were able to walk beside them. And just when we left there, they were deeply saying, oh, I wish you could stay, wish you could just do life with us here. And at this point, we weren't able to do that, to stay on any longer. But we wanted to share with you just maybe a short glimpse of what it's like to be in Indonesia and the ministry there.
It also happens to be from the perspective of our son, Tyler.
The work that we do here mainly focuses around helping the local church. And so we are helping with trying to provide transportation for the local theology school that's in Longbawan, as well as people that have a heart for reaching and discipling the folks that are in the jungles. And so they have a heart for discipling their brethren. Well, how do they get out there? It's really difficult, so MF is here to be able to transport them in an aircraft. And so save either days or months, or not being able to get there at all. Another portion of our flying is medevac. And so we get a call of where they're at, what they're sick with, and we try to get there within the next hour. And so that keeps us fairly busy. We're on call on weekends and even on holidays. And so we try to keep enough margin so that we can at least meet those needs throughout the year. You need to meet the immediate need before you can meet the profound need. If they have a need of, I'm hungry, or I'm sick, or I'm isolated, if we don't meet those needs first, they don't have an ear for the profound need of their spiritual condition. And so MAF is a catalyst. We are able to help bring people that are able to talk in their language, talk in their culture, and partner with other like-minded organizations so as to meet the profound need after the immediate need has been met. For the donors and the people that support us, yeah, first off, thank you very much for giving of your time and prayer as well as your financial means. This would not be possible without you, and we're trying to be faithful to God who allows us to be ministers with Him. And He works on us during this time. And we're a team. We need to strengthen each other, encourage one another, and together we can accomplish things that would not be possible individually. So without you guys doing your part, this would not be possible. So thank you very much.
You couldn't tell he was my son, could you? What's that? He is the oldest son, yes. Yeah, we're running out of time. I'm thinking we end at 10:30 here. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. There we go. Why don't you go with that one?
I'm sure the question is, what's next for us? No, we're not going to retire. God has opened up a way through MAF right now is to share mentoring and discipling of young ones, young aviators and those that are interested in missions. There's an opportunity that we want to present to them to actually be mentored, to be discipled, to talk about things that could happen overseas. There's a lot of extra challenges when you go cross-culturally and living in another country. And so we have been invited to be part of a team at MAF to be able to share with anyone that would like to, ones that are interested in aviation, and trying to talk about things like of the family, learning about your identity in Christ, about family matters, about marriages, how to keep boundaries, how do you thrive in a cross-cultural situation, and also talking about the risks, your philosophy of risk. And these are important things we feel for young ones to be able to, young missionaries that are coming to the field to process through. We're finding that at times they hit hard times. There's sickness, there isn't availability of medical facilities, there's snakes and there's scorpions in your house, and just knowing that there is a certain amount of risk, and is the sake of the gospel worth it? And that's one of the things that will be challenged in our next phase of ministry, is to disciple.
And to end off, just a description or of the program, the MAF program in Tarakan. When we arrived there in Thanksgiving of 2020, this was a picture that was taken of the team. When we left, the latter half of May, all of us were gone. None of those people were there anymore. And that is the nature of this particular program, partly because it doesn't have a high school, and so many families go to another program in the other part of Indonesia, in Sentani, that does have a high school, and so as a result, there's constant transition, which is very difficult for families. They know each other, get to know each other, become friends, their kids become friends, they go to school together, and then whoop, a family leaves because the kids are getting to the age that they need high school. And, and so that's a prayer request for the ones that are there now, because there's constant movement, and that's one of those risks, if you might say, of serving overseas in places where there is a lot of transition. Next. This was in November of last year. This includes all of the new members of our team, but half of who you see there on that picture are no longer there. So right now there are 3 family units and a single that are serving in Tarakan, carrying the load. So pray for them. They have a hard task ahead. The program director is no longer our son. They are transitioning. They're one of the ones that are transitioning to Santani because their oldest son is going to be in 9th grade. And so the one that has taken over, he has to wear a lot of hats, has a lot of responsibilities. He's the main pilot, and he's working with the newest pilot, has been training him. Fortunately, that new pilot is now able to do a lot of the flying. And anyway, that's just one of those things that as you think of us, as you think of Kalimantan, to pray for them. Are there any quick questions? I think we're running pretty close out of time.
On your letter, you said there was a person that got incarcerated, pilot that got...
Right. That was from our program in Mozambique, Africa. And he has now been released. What's the word they use? He's not free to leave the country. He has to stay in country and report back to the police station every so many days. I don't know that he's flying, but his family has rejoined him. So he was in prison for 4 months for a trumped up charge of picking up supplies to take to the terrorists in the northern part of the country, which is, anyway, so.
Were you able to survive on English as a language, or did you need to learn something?
Oh, well, you know, in aviation, English is the world language for aviation. So a lot of our staff need to learn English, particularly the maintenance personnel, because all the manuals are in English. And so I was able to speak, but that was one thing we really missed, was not being able to speak Indonesian. We didn't go to language school, and as a result, we limped along. All right, well, thank you for your ministry to us, even as we are here, and for the coming alongside of us as a team for the last, what do we determine, 20, 30, 38 years? That's amazing. Thank you.